Some towns in Michigan don't just stretch your paycheck, they test your patience and peace of mind as well. Today, we're diving into those places. Welcome to the top 10 worst places to live in Michigan, communities you'll want to think twice about before unpacking a single box. Now, don't get me wrong, Michigan has plenty to offer. From its fascinating history to the world-famous Great Lakes and postcard-worthy small towns, the state is filled with beauty. But behind the pure Michigan ads and glossy travel brochures lies another reality. Neighborhoods where crime, poverty, and failing infrastructure make everyday life feel less like a fresh start and more like survival. So, if you're considering Michigan for your next chapter, you may want to pause. While the state has gems worth exploring, it also has communities where expectations and reality are miles apart. From shaky housing markets to unsafe streets, the gap between Michigan's reputation and the experience in these towns is wide enough to drive a moving truck through. Stick around, because by the end of this countdown, you'll know exactly which towns to avoid. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more breakdowns of the best and worst places to live across the U.S. Number 10 E-Course. On paper, E-Course might sound like a cozy riverfront retreat. In reality, it's not pure Michigan, it's pure struggle. Perched along the Detroit River, this small city of under 9,000 residents lands at the bottom of nearly every livability ranking. Reports from River Grand Rapids, 2024, show E-Course consistently lags behind in income, education, employment, and housing. Simply put, opportunity left this community long ago, and it hasn't returned. Money is the clearest indicator. The median household income is only about $28,000, less than half Michigan's statewide median of $68,000 US. Census Bureau, 2023. Stretching a paycheck here is like pulling a rubber band already on the verge of snapping. Unemployment also sits above the state average, making upward mobility difficult. Housing looks cheap at first glance, with a median value of just $55,000, about the cost of a new pickup truck. But low prices often signal disinvestment in deteriorating neighborhoods, not opportunity. Education doesn't bring much relief either. The E-Course school system trails far behind state averages, with poor test scores and low graduation rates, a serious concern for families. Safety is another issue. While not as violent as Detroit, E-Course still records crime rates above the national average. Property crimes in particular are frequent, meaning double locking your doors is more precaution than paranoia. Bottom line, E-Course isn't where you'll find thriving downtowns or new opportunities. What you'll see is a community struggling to hold itself together. Affordable homes may tempt buyers, but here, low costs are more warning sign than bargain. Number 9. Pontiac. Pontiac may share its name with a legendary American car, but the city itself feels stuck in neutral. Roughly 30 miles north of Detroit, this former auto hub has been stalled for decades. The factories closed, the jobs left, and recovery never followed. The statistics paint a bleak picture. Nearly 30% of residents live below the poverty line, almost 3 times the national average, U.S. Census Bureau, 2023. The median home price hovers at just $120,000. Well below Michigan's $238,000 median, Zillow, 2023. But that affordability comes with serious trade-offs: weak schools, few job opportunities, and declining neighborhoods. Crime is another persistent problem. Property crime dominates, while violent crime remains far higher than the state average. FBI data from 2023 shows a 1 in 61 chance of being a victim of violent crime here, compared to 1 in 202 across Michigan, nearly 3 times the risk. Perhaps the most frustrating factor is Pontiac's lack of momentum. While other struggling towns are at least trying to reinvent themselves with arts districts or new business initiatives, Pontiac remains stagnant. Too often, promises of revitalization collapse into stalled projects and dashed hopes. So, is Pontiac livable? Yes. But desirable? Not really. Unless you're willing to trade bargain home prices for crime, poverty, and a stagnant economy, this is one ride better left in park. Number 8. Harper Woods. With a name like Harper Woods, you might picture quiet tree-lined streets, friendly neighbors, and maybe a local cafe called The Woods. Unfortunately, the reality is closer to the opening scene of a crime drama. Bordering Detroit on the east, Harper Woods is home to about 15,000 people, but its issues loom much larger. The crime rate is shocking. Violent crime here averages 4,057 incidents per 100,000 residents, a staggering 121% higher than Michigan's state average. Property Club, 2024. In plain terms, you're more than twice as likely to become a victim here than elsewhere in the state. Its proximity to Detroit doesn't help either. Problems like crime, poverty, and aging infrastructure don't stop at city limits, they spill over. Living in Harper Woods often feels like fighting against a tide that won't turn. Financially, residents face an uphill battle. The median household income sits at about $52,000, well below the state median of $68,000, U.S. Census Bureau, 2023. Median home values hover near $95,000, which may sound affordable, but in practice, it reflects declining neighborhoods and little reinvestment. Education is another sore spot. Harper Woods schools routinely perform below state averages, leaving parents with tough choices and limited opportunities for their children. What makes Harper Woods especially frustrating is its untapped potential. With freeway access and proximity to the Detroit metro, it should be thriving. Instead, it has become a case study in how access to opportunity doesn't always translate into prosperity. So the question becomes, is saving money on a mortgage worth sacrificing safety and educational quality? In Harper Woods, the gamble almost never pays off. Number 7. Jackson. Jackson, Michigan, may be notable for housing the nation's very first state prison, but in many ways, the city still feels trapped by that legacy. With just over 31,000 residents, it could have been a solid mid-sized community where families settle into Michigan's slower pace of life. Instead, it's stuck in a cycle of negative headlines, crime, poverty, and a reputation that overshadows its history. The crime statistics are sobering. Jackson's crime rate is 127% higher than the state average, and FBI data shows residents face about a 1 in 84 chance of becoming a victim of violent crime. Compare that with safer areas in Michigan, where the odds drop to 1 in 200, and the choice of where to live suddenly feels obvious. Economically, the city struggles. The median household income is just $44,000, far below Michigan's $68,000 statewide median, U.S. Census Bureau, 2023. A poverty rate of 22% adds to the burden, leaving many households living paycheck to paycheck with little chance to get ahead. Housing might seem appealing at first glance, with a median price near $120,000. But cheap doesn't always mean livable. Much of the housing stock is older, neighborhoods are underfunded, and the sense of stability that families look for just isn't there. Jackson schools don't help either, with test scores falling consistently below state averages. The job market, once tied to industry, never truly rebounded after decades of economic shifts. While there are small pockets of revitalization, crime and poverty still dominate daily life. It's like polishing the outside of a car while the engine refuses to start. So ask yourself, would you choose a city where the odds of facing violent crime are greater than finding job security? Until Jackson can turn the tide on safety, education, and income, it's a tough place to recommend calling home. Number 6, Highland Park. Highland Park may be its own city, but blink while driving through Detroit and you'll miss it. Maybe that's for the best. With fewer than 9,000 residents, this tiny enclave punches far above its weight in all the wrong ways. Once a proud hub of the auto industry, today Highland Park is known more for its crime, abandoned homes, and an overwhelming sense of decline. The numbers are staggering. Violent crime occurs at a rate of 4,541 incidents per 100,000 residents, nearly double Michigan's already high average. That places Highland Park among the most dangerous cities in the state. Here, even something as simple as enjoying a cup of coffee outside feels like a risk, not a routine. Economically, the outlook is even bleaker. The median household income is under $28,000, compared to Michigan's $68,000 average. Nearly half the population lives below the poverty line, almost 50%. That's not just struggle, it's crisis. Housing is rock-bottom cheap, with median home values around $45,000. But those low prices are usually tied to blight, neglect, and unsafe conditions. Entire blocks sit dotted with abandoned or collapsing homes. At one point, the city even turned off its streetlights to save money, proof that infrastructure is hanging on by a thread. Education has followed the same downward spiral, with repeated school closures, state takeovers, and chronic underperformance. Families have little confidence the system can provide a stable future for their kids. Add in limited job prospects, and Highland Park feels more like a place to escape than to move into. There's history here, and yes, there's potential. But decades of neglect and poverty have left scars that cheap housing can't cover up. For most people, Highland Park represents one of the hardest environments in Michigan to build a safe and stable life. Number 5, Muskegon Heights. If hardship needed a hometown, Muskegon Heights would be a strong contender. On Michigan's western side, this city of just under 10,000 has earned a reputation as one of the state's most troubled communities. Locals often say it has more problems than people, and unfortunately, the data supports that claim. Start with crime. FBI data from 2023 shows violent crime here is nearly 4 times the national average. Muskegon Heights consistently ranks among the most dangerous cities in Michigan, where every trip outside feels like rolling the dice. Property crimes are just as common, making home security more necessity than luxury. Financially, residents face crushing odds. The median household income is only $29,000, less than half of Michigan's $68,000 average. Roughly 35% of the population lives in poverty, creating a cycle of disadvantage that's hard to escape. Housing is dirt cheap, often under $60,000, but that deal comes with steep trade-offs. Unsafe neighborhoods, low stability, and a fragile housing market make it a risky investment at best. The education system doesn't inspire confidence either. Muskegon Heights schools have endured financial crises, closures, and state takeovers, leaving test scores and graduation rates far below state levels. What makes it more disheartening is its location. Right next door, Muskegon has been revitalizing with arts, tourism, and investment. Yet Muskegon Heights remains stuck, unable to share in the progress. So the question becomes, is cheap housing worth the daily struggle for safety, stability, and opportunity? For most, the answer is no. Muskegon Heights may look like a bargain on paper, but in reality, it's a place where hope feels scarce and progress is painfully out of reach. Number 4, Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo is one of Michigan's most recognizable names, quirky enough to appear in songs and catchy enough to stick in your head. But behind the fun name is a city that struggles with serious problems. With about 73,000 residents, Kalamazoo should be thriving. It's home to Western Michigan University, cultural attractions, and a great location between Detroit and Chicago. Instead, it's weighed down by crime, poverty, and uneven growth. Crime leads the list of concerns. Property Club, 2024, reports 618 incidents per 100,000 residents, 164% higher than the national average. Violent crimes, particularly assaults and robberies, keep residents on edge and make evenings out feel unsafe. Economically, the picture is mixed. While the university creates pockets of energy and innovation, the broader community lags behind. The median household income is just $45,000, far short of Michigan's $68,000 median, and nearly 25% of residents live in poverty. When 1 in 4 people are struggling, opportunity clearly isn't reaching everyone. Housing seems somewhat affordable, with median home prices near $170,000. But lower costs lose their shine in neighborhoods plagued by crime or disinvestment. Much of the housing stock is older, and without reinvestment, value erodes quickly. Education is another challenge. Kalamazoo's public schools consistently perform below state standards, discouraging families who might otherwise be attracted by the city's cultural assets and parks. That's what makes Kalamazoo so frustrating. It has potential, a strong university, vibrant arts, and a unique identity. But crime, poverty, and lagging schools weigh it down. It's the textbook example of promise versus reality. For most families, the risks outweigh the charm of the name. Number 3. Flint. Flint, a name that echoes across America, but for all the wrong reasons. Once recognized for its auto industry and blue-collar strength, today Flint is synonymous with poisoned water. Even though officials declared the water crisis over, its impact still hangs heavy over this city of nearly 80,000. Flint's struggles started long before the water crisis. When the auto industry collapsed, so did the city's economic foundation. The result? A median household income of just $32,000, less than half the state average. Nearly 40% of residents live below the poverty line, one of the highest poverty rates in Michigan. Crime is another major obstacle. According to 2023 FBI data, Flint residents face a 1 in 50 chance of becoming a victim of violent crime, among the worst odds in the state. While things aren't as dire as they were at the city's peak crime years, safety remains a serious concern. And then there's trust. Between 2014 and 2019, Flint endured one of the worst public health disasters in modern U.S. history when lead-tainted water endangered thousands. Officials now claim the water meets safety standards, but rebuilding confidence in basic necessities like tap water takes more than government assurances. For many families, Flint is still the city where even drinking water once came with risk. Housing here is cheap. Median home values are under $60,000, but affordability masks the reality of abandoned homes, blight, and unstable neighborhoods. Schools remain underfunded and underperforming, leaving parents with few good options. Flint is tragic because it wasn't always like this. Once a thriving hub of opportunity, it now stands as a warning of what happens when industry collapses and leadership fails. Until the city can truly turn the page, moving to Flint means gambling with safety, health, and your children's future. Number 2. Benton Harbor. Benton Harbor might sit along Lake Michigan's scenic shoreline, but don't mistake the view for a promise of stability. With fewer than 9,000 residents, it consistently ranks as one of Michigan's most dangerous small cities. The stats are grim. Area Vibes reports that Benton Harbor's violent crime rate is around 2,300 per 100,000 residents, more than 400% above the state average. That means crime isn't a rare event here, it's a constant reality. And the challenges don't stop there. Starting in 2018, Benton Harbor faced its own water crisis when lead contaminated the city's supply. By 2023, officials declared it safe again, but just like Flint, trust is harder to restore than pipes. Families who spent years relying on bottled water won't soon forget the ordeal. Economically, Benton Harbor struggles just as much. The median household income is just $27,000, far below Michigan's $68,000 average. Nearly half the population lives in poverty, making it one of the poorest communities in the Midwest. Employment opportunities are scarce, leaving families trapped in cycles of hardship. Yes, homes are cheap, median prices hover around $60,000, but buyers inherit more than property. They inherit crime, weak infrastructure, and failing schools. Education in Benton Harbor has long been plagued with budget deficits, low performance, and constant instability, leaving parents with few good choices. The toughest pill to swallow? It's geography. Right across the river sits St. Joseph, a prosperous, tourist-friendly town packed with wealth and opportunity. Benton Harbor, meanwhile, remains stuck in poverty and decline. Two cities, side by side, but worlds apart. Cheap housing and lake views may sound tempting, but in Benton Harbor, reality outweighs the scenery. Number 1. Detroit. Detroit, the Motor City, Motown, the comeback story leaders love to promote. And yes, downtown is experiencing a revival. But beyond the bright headlines and trendy lofts, Detroit remains Michigan's most troubled city. With 620,000 residents, it's the largest city in the state, and also the most dangerous. According to 2023 FBI data, Detroit's overall crime rate sits at 6,389 incidents per 100,000 residents, 170% above the national average. The odds of becoming a victim of violent crime are 1 in 44, compared to Michigan's statewide 1 in 222. That makes Detroit one of the riskiest big cities in America. Economics are no kinder. The median household income is $37,000, nearly half the state average, and nearly one-third of residents live in poverty. Despite billions poured into revitalizing downtown and midtown, vast sections of Detroit remain abandoned and decayed. Entire neighborhoods feel left behind, with opportunity existing only for a lucky few. Housing seems affordable, with median prices around $65,000, but abandoned homes, blight, and crumbling infrastructure often turn bargains into money pits. Public health issues add another layer. Detroit continues to face higher than average rates of infant mortality and chronic health problems, worsened by years of limited healthcare access. To be fair, Detroit isn't without hope. Its cultural legacy is unmatched, and areas like Midtown are seeing genuine investment. But step outside those revitalized zones, and the story changes to boarded-up houses, empty lots, and crime rates that keep even locals on edge after dark. Should you move here? Only if you're fully prepared for the realities: high crime, deep poverty, and unstable neighborhoods. Detroit is resilient, no doubt. But right now, it still tops the list of cities in Michigan you should think twice before calling home. And there you have it, Michigan's top 10 worst places to live. From economic collapse to soaring crime rates, these towns prove that the Great Lakes state isn't always pure paradise. Which city surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more breakdowns of America's best and worst places to live.